Okay. It's hard to see from here. Okay, I think this is the concerns of this probably prepared by some of the presenters in this. But it's not. So the first concern is changes in the annual frequency of events of Taiwan Navy and preliminary results of the future projection and use phenomena metrics and performance metrics conduction for local climate and also relationship in between local extreme rainfall and large-scale circulation. So this is something we want to discuss or Professor Chen. Professor Chen, I know his group has done some study on the phenomenon matrix and performance matrix. And I don't know if any of his members here. Yeah. Okay, so okay. All right, this is summary of their talk, and the next one, the presentation by Dr. Kim, projection and uncertainty in sine-qua, wasteful or useful, and Dr. Kim mentioned that the method to reduce uncertainty and keep signal for projection, and he proposed the best model approach, and also the potential application of GCM projection on high frequency variability. And Professor Chen talked about regionalization and uncertainty of future Taiwan climate change projections based on signified statistic downscaling, and he showed preliminary results of projected local rainfall based on CV5, and also he also conducted uncertainty assessment for the downscale results based on CV5 projections over Taiwan, and he also discussed the compare the uncertainties, the model uncertainties, and also also the natural uncertainties. And the next presenter, Dr. Mizuta, talked about performance of tropical cyclone activities in MRI AGCM model, and also discussed uncertainty analysis of MRI AGCM. And Dr. Chan, the NCDR, gave some preliminary results of the dynamic downscaling for TCCIP Phase 2 project, and he presented preliminary results of dynamic downscaling based on GCM Taiwan, and also he showed seasonal rainfall diurnal cycle of Taiwan. And also I discussed the limitations and maybe the applications that need to be cautious by using the statistical downscaling method. And the next, we have quite a lot of presentations. I'll let you research this. Professor Roger Stone made a lot of very good and very interesting talk. I'm impressed, actually. Okay, and this is the last slide, but let's take a look. And if you have any spatial concern or you want to discuss any results, just raise your hand. So discussion.
Surprise.
I think this figure shows the the concern of many presenters. How can we communicate with users, especially we are the data provider, we do analysis, but the user might not be able to know all details. And also for us, we probably don't have a very good idea what they really need. So there is a gap between the data provider and the user, and how can we fill the gap? So any comments?
You're going to beat me, Roger. All I was going to say, I was going to go back to something Roger said actually, but Roger in his presentation, when he talked about workshops, said that he got people in the room and he made them write down what kind of decisions they needed to make and map those against timescales. And I know you're doing some of this as part of the next phase, but I'd just be interested in how you're doing that. And you know, it was an interesting point because it just flags up a big difference between methods in terms of those which are focused on start with the decisions and then look at climate risks, and those which start at looking at the impacts and then digging down to understanding and adaptation. So starting with the decision first is the certainly most popular approach now in the UK. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Well, thank you for that. It's a cool segue. Yeah, on one of my slides, I didn't draw attention to it. We have a saying which is deliberately provocative. And it says climate information and forecasts have no value unless they change a management decision, which is a little bit provocative, but then it forces this activity to focus on the decision making rather than just only the impacts, which are very important. And then that decision, to get the decisions listed, then sets the mind of the users in place to think, now how will this start to fit? How will this really fit into my decisions? Because often they don't know their own decision processes. They need to articulate that as well. So once they've done that, they're much more amenable to accessing the data and the information. But then on the provider side, on the climate science side, that may change the format, the output, the code, the software engineering, the integrated modelling that's needed, and perhaps other models such as economic models or socio-economic models that might also be required. So that's picking up on Steve's point.
Well, the situation in Taiwan is not the idea. I mean, the TCCIP project is in the second phase, and during the first phase of the TCCIP project, a lot of scientific study has been done, and we have created huge amount of scientific data. But the users, they started to request the data. I think it's probably near the end of the first phase of TCCIP. And so we have done our scientific study for a couple of years before the user requested data. So we already have data, and now, like Roger just mentioned, the application of the users, they want to make decision, and they need to know what kind of data they want. But the data they want, or the scale they require, may not be able to match by the data we have created. So this is I think this echoes Dr. Cho's comments that we have a gap, and maybe I mean, for our situation, we have the data already available, and the user not they need certain kind of data, but there is a gap in between the kind of data we have. We can either, the TCCIP can develop tools, and the TCCIP can do that for the users, but there are so many users and they have different requirements. So it probably be very difficult for TCCP alone to do all the jobs. So like we show here, there's a gap. How can we develop, or can we pull more, or to have more collaboration with researchers in different sectors to develop tools and to bridge the gap? That may be the next step to do for the situation in Taiwan. Any comments?
Is it possible to show the slide previous presenter that showed the interface? In the last presentation, yes. I think it has a user interface, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Take a moment. Take a moment. This one? 那我自己等下。
Is probably the first several slides. Yeah.
就
Maybe, yeah. Maybe that's it.
before.
Yeah, this one.
That almost shows it to me, that where it says translated information. You've got an information platform. It's this user interface, which is possibly the two middle slides, that seems to need to be resourced. And it possibly is, but that's the key area. And what is required in there is an ongoing process, an iterative process. Yeah, I would have thought. But that's the user interface platform that comes from the global framework for climate services that was shown as well earlier on. You go back right back to
That's the.
yeah, go back to GFCS on the left.
Oh, okay.
Number 4. Yeah, their CD user interface, that needs resourcing. And notice that is deliberate, that they have the users on top. They're constantly discussing their management systems and so on. So it seems to me you have the climate services information system, the observation monitoring, the research modelling and prediction, very much so. It's just that user interface area, and that might need economists or socioeconomic or interfacing modelling. It's an interesting group that know how to combine the information into something a little bit more amenable to management. That's possibly,
But so far as I know, this is the goal of the Team 4. You know, Team 4 started this year, last year, right? So, and they, right now, how many members in Team 4 now? 8. Okay. So, but apparently they have a lot of job to do, and I'm sure their performance are very promising.
I think you've got to try and get that group on top to
sort of almost take ownership of some of this, the process, and to get much more involved. It might be that there are groups like national farmers' unions or engineering consultants, Chartered Institute of Engineers for Taiwan, or the Environment Agency. Well, I don't know all the institutions you have, but they need to come in and do their own projects with you, which are about how we're going to use this information in our sector. If they actually manage and run those jobs, they can interface with you, with your team, and you can work together, and that will help translate the information into something which people will use. So in the UK, that would be, there's for example a UK water industry research company, which is all the water companies pay into that, and they do research projects. So it'd be that kind of level of institution that would take the work forward with you.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. We can bring the expert or specialist in different sector into this collaboration. And I know some consulting companies in Taiwan, they use the data, and I think they have some specialties we probably can have closer collaborations, and they can provide their comment or opinions, or they can even tell us what exactly the kind of data they need. Actually, I just add some the comment on actually my last slide. Actually, there's one actually a figure. That's what I want to talk in this the workshop. Actually, there's a actually I divide into three part. One is the actually the climate information provider. Maybe it can be from the climate scientist part. And the middle of the part is, I think, the TCCIP and APCC can do that kind of job in the middle. And then we have a lot of application sector, it's a lot of things. So what I'm thinking, actually for the first and second part, actually we can collaborate together. Actually the topic discussed here, actually we are keep discussing in APCC, same issues. So actually we can share the data. Actually, the data is a global scale, lots of things, and also the tool. Actually, you develop some actually downstream tool, and I develop downstream tool, and then we can share that kind of thing. So we can collaborate that kind of things, but application part is different because the uncertainty and the actually impact is local dependent. So we cannot do everything. For example, the water sector in APCC, we just 5 doctors. And we cannot do everything for the water in Korea. So what I want to do, actually, we understand the climate information and also understand what's going on in the water sector. So we can be actually the messenger between that two. And we can develop some actually data tool and then give the application part, actually that the tool. Actually, it should be very easy because the application part, actually, they really want some data, but they do not understand what's the format of the landscape, what's the resolution, something like that. So we can provide the information as easy as we can. And also the important thing is the transparency of the data. Actually, we have to give the information about the data, how the data is created, what's the limitation, what's that kind of things, and then they can use that data for many applications. And the important thing is we have to collect their evaluation for a specific objective. For example, for specific objectives, actually one downscaling method actually cannot handle every application. One can be appropriate for a specific application, but it cannot work for the other. So we need that kind of information, which downstream method, which data is approved for this application, and etc. Something like that. So in order to do that, actually, we need to do some the performance metrics. Actually, we need to think about which one is the most important process, and if we find out this process is very important for the application, and we need to think about the climate data related to the process. Which characteristic of the climate information is related to the actual process, and then we have to think about that kind of linkage. So I think actually the collaboration, the international collaboration for the first and second part is very important, and then we make
the application use the data easily, and then with the transparency of the data, and then we need to think about the way get the suggestion and their evaluation, the comment back to our the TCCIP and APCC, and then based on that information we can actually improve the system. So that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, TCCIP has established very close collaboration with Social Program, and APCC is, of course, another partner that we can collaborate. And also, Dr. Joe mentioned that the metadata, the kind of data we created, we need to have a better explanation, or to clearly indicate its limitation, or under what situation it can be applied. And of course, that's, I think Team 4 is doing that. Any comment or further discussions?
From our past knowledge from the touching resources, we have been discussing between the vision model and impact assessment group maybe every 2 or 3 times per year. The important issue is we try to discuss about the limitation of the modeling and assumption of the modeling and limitation of the use of the data set rather than nice results. So that is very important to discuss between the model and data user. So I strongly recommend to display what's result which cannot show at the conference. That kind of discussion is very important to understand limitation of the use of the VCM or RCS or impact assessment tool.
Okay, then any further discussion?
I just have a very small point to make. In looking at the last presentation on the work of TCCIP, I see that the scientific assessment part looks to me very similar to the IPCC process. It's almost like a Taiwan version of the IPCC AR, what we call one report. So I just want to be sure that there is not too much duplication of effort, that you take advantage of the IPCC results. And IPCC, as you know, also maintain a data center at in Peace CMBI. So I understand that you are more focused on the Taiwan region, but there is a wealth of data on a global scale, and that at least at the the policymaker statement, the summary of policy, is the summary for policymakers of IPCC. Also, there's a Chinese version as one of the official languages, so you don't need to translate at least that part of the report.
Professor Xu needs to make some comment.
Respond to Gabriel's 2 questions, excellent questions. Actually, this AR5 data is something like more than 2 petabytes, right? The total amount, right? So we, the joint collaboration between this another climate change project, I'm the PI, and TCCIP, we actually we have some assistants. They constantly downloading signified data. It's the system is very it's very difficult to use. You have to click on each parameter, and you would start the communication probably in 2 hours, and you have to register again, something like that. So it's very painful slowly, but we start doing that slowly. And we have already the most important part of the data set, and we provide that data to the community in Taiwan. So yeah, so there's a group of people suffering constantly on a daily basis doing the data downloading. Yeah, and another thing is about Chinese translation. So I guess we are not going to translate the whole 3 volume or the whole volume of the first report, the scientific report, but just Spain, just SPM, right? But just not the whole volume.
But Geneva is already going to have a Chinese version.
Right. But you see, we sort of feel that our translation probably easier for Chinese people to read. And the writing tone, the way of writing is slightly different. So, and during the process, actually, we know a little bit better or in more detail about this AR5 report. Yeah, so that's a good practice. So, yeah. And there's also the political reason. We cannot simply use the Chinese version, in Taiwan. Yeah.
It has been 3 very long days, and I don't want to torture you anymore. So let's close this discussion and summary session, and give this back to Professor Xu.
Okay, so I guess this is the end of a long 3 days. And thank you for coming and sticking with us until the last moment, especially our foreign visitors and participants. And I have learned a lot in the past 3 days, and I hope you feel the same. Okay. So we'll continue to have this kind of workshop and activity, and hope all of you can join us again in the future. So before I close this workshop, on behalf of this online committee, and especially Director Chen, so I'd like to quiz our staffs. Well, I'd like to say thank to our staff. Could you all stand up and go higher? Yeah. Don't stay in the shadow, right? You have come out of the closet. Come on. Okay, this is just a small portion of the staff. They have been working. Come on, everyone stand up. Yeah, what's this? Okay, they have been actually have done a lot of work in the past, I guess, probably more than 2 months, planning the workshop and inviting the foreign participants and preparing the agenda and hopefully trying to get the abstract as complete as fast as possible. Usually, Taiwanese scientists are the last one to submit their abstract because the distance is shorter. Right? Okay, so let's give applause to our staff. Thank you. So here, I say goodbye to everyone and I hope to see you again in the near future.